Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aniket, and on behalf of Godrej Material Handling, I welcome you to our next webinar from our storage and handling series titled Different Types of Forklifts. Material handling equipment are an integral part of the organizational supply chain, and with the challenge of restricted cash flow brought about by the lockdown, it has become all the more important to make an informed decision while selecting the best fit for your requirement. To help our partners understand MHEs better, we had organized an online session earlier this month, which many of you had attended, where we shared our knowledge on general concepts of material handling, which we have gained over 50 years in the industry. Similarly, a webinar on seismic racking was also conducted, which of course many of you had again attended. Following the event, we are overwhelmed to see such a positive feedback and request for more such sessions that we have decided to conduct these knowledge sharing webinars on a regular basis under the umbrella of storage and handling series, where we aim to cover concepts and in-depth sessions on both storage solutions and material handling equipment, while at the same time we try our best to answer any doubts which you may have on these topics. That brings me to today's webinar on different types of forklifts, which is the second webinar from our third webinar, sorry, from our storage and handling series, where we aim to learn more about forklift trucks and how versatile they are with the use of different attachments. Today's webinar is being presented by Mr. Abhishek Chaturvedi, who is an Associate General Manager in Marketing in the Material Handling Division of Godrej and Boyce. He started his career in Storage Solutions Division of the same company in the year 2000 and has an expertise in the optimum racking and material solution in the intralogistics space across multiple industries in India, backed by almost 20 years of experience. Before I move on, I would request everyone to put in their questions in the chat box on the right. We shall try to answer them straight away or towards the end of the session. Please do not forget to write your name in the box above the Q&A section. That will help us get back to you in after the webinar in case we miss your question. With that, I request Mr. Abhishek Chaturvedi to take over, and wish everyone has an insightful session.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Aniket, for that very accurate introduction to this webinar. Just to add to what Aniket said, we are starting this storage and handling knowledge series, which is like a support platform for all our customers who would like to know more about the intralogistics space. Now, with the three SBUs, the storage solutions, material handling, and Conservio, we are complete solution providers in this space. Now, with our wide range of experience spread over the last more than 6 decades, we would like to give back to the industry what we have gained as knowledge through our varied experience in as many years. So we are going to continue these sessions, and you are more than welcome to keep suggesting the topics on which you would like us to present, and we would keep bringing those knowledge sessions for you. So as Aniket said, we did the first session on the general concepts in material handling, which was very well received, followed by a session on seismic racking, which was again something which was very useful to many people. And now next in the series, we are going to talk about one of the most versatile equipment in material handling, which is forklifts. Now, when we talk about material handling, the first thing that anybody and everybody thinks of is forklifts. With that brief context, I would like to start my presentation, wherein we are going to talk about different types of forklifts, attachments, and the powertrains. Now, I would just like to put a disclaimer here that we are trying to keep this session for a varied mix of audience which will be very well versed with the technology and the technicals and the know-how of forklifts, as well as those people who have no idea whatsoever about what a forklift is. So taking note out of this mix of audience, I am trying to keep this session as simplistic as possible. Like it may be like for a layman to make him understand what a forklift is and what are the different types of forklifts. So please bear with me in case some content sounds very generic or very basic, in the interest of people who will gain from even that basic knowledge. So with that, uh, we proceed to the different types of forklifts. Now, before we get into only forklifts, it is important for us to understand what are the categorization in a material handling space. It's very, very important because the industry is divided for a particular reason, so that whenever there is development happening, people are able to focus on that core category of equipment that is being spoken about. So if you can see on the screen, the various classes of equipment are shown here. I would just briefly take you through each of these classes in a as simple language as possible. So class 1 category of products is electric forklifts. Okay. Uh, Class 2 is those category of forklifts which those category of material handling equipment which run inside the warehouses and are rider equipment, and these are operating in narrow aisles. For example, reach trucks, stock pickers, turret stock pickers, all these are class 2 category of equipment. Next, if you see, these are class 3 range of equipment. These are the pedestrian electrical equipment, such as powered pallet trucks, stackers, where generally an operator moves behind the truck, or at best he stands on the platform while he moves. So that is class 3 category of products. Class 4 and 5 are IC engine operated trucks, which are demarcated in terms of the type of tires used. So class 4 is solid tires with solid tires, and class 5 are those forklifts with pneumatic tires. So class 6 are the electrical and internal combustion tractors, which are those equipment which are used for tugging trolleys. So for example, tow trucks of varied capacities are part of this category, and class 7 is the rough terrain forklifts. So that in brief tells you about the various classification of forklifts. Today, today's session, as we are talking about different types of forklifts, so we are going to talk about class 1, 4 and 5. In forthcoming sessions, we will be taking up details about class 2 and 3. So when we talk about class 1, 4 and 5, as I mentioned, class 1 is electric forklifts and class 4 and 5 are diesel forklifts. So let me first begin with class 4 and 5 forklifts, because these are the most popularly used equipment across all the category of forklifts in terms of number of units. And within IC engine forklifts, these are the various types which are generally available by the sheer categorization of this forklift. So we have diesel powered, petrol powered, LPG and CNG powered. But out of all this, if we talk about diesel powered, it is the most popular. If you notice that light commercial vehicles, you will find a mix of diesel and petrol, while in heavier vehicles you will never find a petrol powered truck or trailer or something. The main reason is that the diesel engines are supposed to work more efficiently with higher torque in heavier applications vis-a-vis petrol, and they are known to give more output per liter as compared to petrol, especially in heavier applications. And obviously, even though the difference is now getting very less, but as a cost also, the cost of diesel is less. As far as LPG is concerned, this is more of a function of obviously cost and then availability of those cylinders, this is something which does not make this category very popular. And again, CNG also, though, is another category available, but still it is not as popular as diesel, and it is available in pockets and is also dependent on supplies of CNG gas. Now, so we will be focusing our discussion mainly on diesel forklifts. So in diesel forklifts, the main types of forklifts are categorized into three broad parts. The first category is the light duty, the second is the medium duty, and third is the heavy duty. Okay, and they are all classified based on the tonnage for which these are used. For example, light duty is for up to 3 ton capacity, anything up to between 4 and 6 is medium duty, and above 6 ton capacities, they are in the category of heavy duty. Now, as I said, this session is just to give a very simple know-how about forklift. So what we are trying to cover here is we are not going to talk too much about technology here. We are going to talk about the basic constituents which are available in any forklift, just to give a know-how to our audience that what they can expect when these equipment they come across these equipment. So obviously in a diesel forklift we will have an engine, we will have a transmission which can be either fluid coupling or automatic transmission. I'm going to talk a bit about that again in a very simplistic way, not trying to confuse you too much with the technology or the engineering related with that. Then there are drive axles, which is for transmitting the power, drum brakes, types of tires, the mast which you can see in the front of the truck, and then there is a counterweight which is at the behind of the truck, and then various attachments that can get fitted onto this, and last but not the least, various safety accessories such as red light, blue light, alarms. So all these are the typical constituents of a light diesel forklift. Now, in light diesel forklift, there are generally two types of transmissions which are available in the market. Now, what you see in front is not generally you see on a forklift. This is more of an automobile picture, but this was just to give you an idea about the two technologies so that you can relate to it better. Now, on the left hand side, if we see, this is fluid coupling with, or maybe manual transmission, if we may call it, and people who drive cars, they can relate to it easily, that this is where you change gears based on the requirement of speed or torque. While on right hand side, you just have to either put it on the drive or reverse mode, and the rest of the thing is taken care of by the engine and transmission, by the transmission basically. Now there are pros and cons in both types of technologies. Okay. So for example, and now this is something that you can relate to straight away with your automobile experience. If you want to have a great pickup, you go for generally the manual transmission, because the pickup on the automatic transmission is a bit low. But at the same time, the type of control that you require, especially at inclines, uh, will be more control you will require on a fluid coupling, which is manual transmission, as compared to a automatic transmission. Next, if you look at people who are not too comfortable in changing gears, or for them, manual transmission is like a very easy to get used to type of transmission. So you just put it in drive mode and rest everything is taken care of. While for others, for every type of requirement, you have to keep changing the gears continuously. So similarly, in forklifts also, you have both technologies available. Fluid coupling is available since ages. Automatic transmission is available also for a long time. But slowly there is a shift which is happening towards automatic transmission, so that the productivity of the operator also goes up, because he continuously does not have to shift the gears, and even a not so experienced operator with a good bit of training can get into the automatic forklift easily. But having said that, the fluid coupling trucks are equally popular, mainly for the reason that they've been in usage for a long time. There's a comfort level already associated with those category of forklifts, and plus also there is a lot of ease of parts availability for fluid coupling in the market. So that's another reason where people still go in for fluid coupling. But as a technology, automatic transmission is the latest technology, and slowly and surely people are shifting to this new technology of transmission. A bit of a technical part to it. The only difference between the two, that you have a stator, or what you can call as a torque converter in between, which adds on to that benefit, where you don't have to continuously press the clutch and change the gear. That is taken care of automatically. Will not go too much into the technicals of this. If anybody needs any detail, they can contact us separately, and we will share the details. What are the various applications of a light diesel forklift? So as you can see, the pics are self-explanatory. So let me tell you that among all the material handling equipment, the forklifts are the most popular category. Within forklifts, diesel forklifts are the most popular category, and within diesel forklifts, up to 3 ton, which is light diesel forklifts, are the most popular category in terms of numbers, because they are able to cater to most of the applications. Now, next we talk about the medium diesel forklift. More or less, the constituents remain the same. The only difference being that by default you get an automatic transmission in medium diesel and upwards, whereas the choice between fluid coupling and automatic transmission is there for the light diesel forklift. In this, you get automatic as a standard constituent. Other than that, all the other constituents remain the same, like a light diesel forklift. So as you can see, when we say medium diesel, of course the capacity requirements are higher, and that you can note from the application photographs, which will be visible to you. So anywhere where you need an attachment like a paper roll clamp, which has to go to a certain height, or a wide load to be handled of a certain higher tonnage, or in a construction industry. So these are all the industries and applications where you can use a medium diesel forklifts. Next, we talk about heavy duty diesel forklifts. Now, in this, the only change is the hydrodynamic transmission. Rest everything remains the same, but obviously the build of the truck is much more heavy. If you can notice, the mast, the chains, uh, and the overall structure, the tires, everything is to cater to the heavy tonnage requirement of this category of forklifts. And these are the various applications of forklifts. For example, in steel coil handling, or container stuffing of heavy material. Uh, these are very popularly used in ports and harbor, especially for container handlings, and in furnace applications, where molten metal, slag, and all that needs to be transported from one point to another. So those are the various applications for heavy diesel forklifts, and capacities are available up to 25 ton. So then within the diesel category only, we spoke about light duty, medium duty and heavy duty. Now within the diesel category, you also have something called as special forklifts, which are based on specific application. Okay, so as I was just mentioning in the application photograph, so you have a tire handler which is specially for handling tires which are difficult to handle manually. So, for example, in big dumpers in mining industry or coal fields where you need to change the tires, you need to have an equipment, and these equipment come in very handy in those applications. Then, if you want to handle steel coils, now you don't need forks there. You need something like a ram to hold those coils, and then if you have to store it in a container, so in spite of forklift being a very heavy forklift or a very big size forklift, still it has to have an application so that it needs to have a design change so that it can operate inside a container also. So those sort of special design forklifts are available, and then empty container handlers where you have to stack the containers either from a trailer or one over the other 3 high or 5 high. So these are all customized equipment which are useful in very specific applications. So this is a tire handler forklift. So I'm just running a short video for all of you to get an understanding of this category of equipment. So this was the tire handler that we just saw. Next, we are going to have a video of container stuffing forklift. So as you saw that in a very tight space, the container, the forklift is able to negotiate and place the pallet. This video is about empty container handling forklift. So this will give you a good idea about this application. So the next we are talking about the LPG forklift. As I mentioned, that this is something which is not very popular in India, but as a product, this is available, and this also works on the concept of diesel engine. Next, we are talking about the next category of forklift. So the first segment was on electric diesel forklift. So next, let us talk about the getting popular by the day electric forklifts. So in this, there are different types of forklifts which are available: lead acid, lithium ion, articulated, and a special category of stand-up forklift is also available in the electric forklift category. Now, in this also there are a variety of forklifts which are available. There is a three-wheeler which is up to a 2-ton capacity, zero point 0.8 to 2 ton. Then there is a four-wheeler, 1.5 to 3 ton, and now with market requirements asking for heavier tonnage. Earlier it was historically it was always up to 3 tons, and anything heavier than that, people were going in for medium diesel forklifts. So now, with environmental consciousness going higher, people are demanding heavier tonnage in electric forklifts, and now in the market, capacities up to 5 ton in electric are also available. So, in electric forklifts, yeah, the main constituents are, of course, the drive motor instead of engine and transmission, as you saw in the diesel forklifts. And then you have a controller, which is a very important constituent of any electric forklift, because all the parameters are maintained using the controller. Then there is a power source, which is either a lead acid or lithium ion battery. The pump motor, which is for lifting, lowering of mast and forks, and then different types of brakes, tires, mast, of course we spoke about, and even these are compatible with attachments. And of course you have a counterweight and various type of safety accessories. So these are the typical constituents of a electric forklift. Now, where do electric forklifts operate? So generally these forklifts are operated inside the factory environment, not that they are not suitable for outside application. They are as much suitable for outside as much inside. But in inside, when definitely people try to avoid diesel forklifts because of the emissions in a closed environment, and that is where electric forklifts are more preferred. And the various industries which adopt this category of products are shown here: food and beverage, FMCG, retail, paper and packaging. Not restricted to these industries, but these are the major users of electric forklifts. Now, one of the queries that we were always having, that can electric forklifts run in rain? So first I'll run a short video. So this was a typical Mumbai rain. So what we are trying to say here is that yes, electrical forklifts can now work outside also. Okay, but the thing that we have to be careful about is that they should not be used in standing water, like waterlogged portions and all that. A bit of a splashing here and there is okay, but if we are trying to negotiate this forklift through a standing water, then water may get inside the motors or controllers and may damage those expensive components. Otherwise, today's technology is good enough to have these equipment operate in rains also. So what are the various advantages of electric forklift? Obviously, it is clean fuel energy, single charge per shift. So depending on the application, you can have one charge lasting the battery for the full operation. Then it is energy efficient, tighter turning radius as compared to diesel forklifts, better handling and maneuverability because it is relatively lighter than diesel forklift, and there are no almost no vibrations, because the major source of vibrations is engine. So because that is replaced by a motor which is relatively a much silent power source. So literally there are no vibrations which are available, which are there. And one of the debates has always been that which is more expensive, because in the initial buy, an electric forklift is certainly more expensive than a diesel forklift in an initial buy. But if you look at the total cost of ownership, including the fuel that is used, the maintenance, the midlife overhaul, the engine overhauls which go in a diesel forklift, in a 10-year duration, definitely a total cost of ownership will work in favor of electric forklift. And then there are a lot of things which can be done with the electrical switches, which can make it a foolproof, safe forklift. Not that a diesel forklift is an unsafe piece of equipment, but there are a lot of opportunities to inculcate those sort of intuitive safety features in electric as vis-a-vis to diesel forklift. Of course, environment is one of the key criteria for people going in for electric forklifts. So if there is an application where you can choose either of the two equipment, and you are also looking at a total cost of ownership, in most of the cases people will go in for electric forklifts. Now, having said that, that does not mean that the diesel forklifts are not good or they do not serve the purpose. So where an applications demand a diesel forklift, there is no option but to go in for a diesel forklift only. So there is an application, and basis that the right equipment should be chosen. But as I said, if a choice has to be made for a same application, an electric forklift in many cases will score over a diesel forklift. Now, there is another sort of bit of a technical part. Sorry about that for people where I made a disclaimer. I will not make it too technical for you. So I'll not go deeper into that, but there is a lot of questions about AC versus DC. So yes, AC is the latest technology. Nothing very big about it. AC is something which is people have embraced almost like more than 5 years ago. The only change which is relatively recent is that apart from the traction motor, which is used for moving the truck forward and reverse, the pump motor, which is used for lifting the forks up and down, that also has been made AC. So with that, it becomes a completely AC forklift truck, and these are now easily available in the market. And the main advantage is that in DC motor, you one of the key maintenance points was you had to continuously change the brush sets, spring sets, and do continuous maintenance. Now with AC motor completely sealed, completely enclosed, those requirements have gone away. So to that extent, your maintenance cost come drastically down with an AC motor truck. Battery runs longer because it runs cooler as compared to a DC motor. So all in all, an AC forklift truck in an electrical category is the most recommended technology and the most adopted technology, so to say, in this category of forklifts. Now, one of the things that we always feel when we are not part of the industry is that this is that very like ugly looking piece of equipment somewhere running beyond our eyes and nowhere comparable to automobiles and all that. But things are changing, I must tell you. There are a lot of features, lot of aesthetics, lot of smart electronics which are getting built into these equipment as well to make it a very enriching operator experience as far as drivability and interface between the operator and machine is concerned. So this what is displayed on the screen is just one example of one of the consoles which is available on an electric forklift, which gives you all the parameters like a dashboard, and this communicates continuously with the operator. So these sort of things are pretty common now in the forklifts today, and it ensures a very high level of safety also for the operator, machine, and the material. Then we have the technology of lithium-ion battery. Now, a lot of discussion and debate revolves around this technology that whether this is a sustainable technology, whether this will disrupt the lead acid battery market completely. So let me try to put some things in perspective, and again, not going too much into the technology part of it, trying to keep it as simple as possible. See, first of all, we have to understand this is not a one size which fits all. Okay, it is not that in every application a lithium ion battery will find a usage. Uh, so what do I mean by that? I mean that the initial investment in a lithium ion battery is pretty high, okay, as compared to lead acid battery. So unless your application demands and unless your ROI justifies, there is no point in you going in for a lithium ion battery. What is the main trigger? What are the main trigger points for people going in for a lithium ion battery, and where lithium ion battery will actually be useful? For example, you have a, two shift operation, okay, uh, and with a lead acid battery you need to take an additional battery, so there is all the aspect of maintaining an additional battery, the cost for that, and plus the fact that you need to have some changeover mechanism, the time required in that changeover and all that stuff. So that is one thing. uh, so that is one application where you may consider a lithium ion battery. Now, but when you're using a lithium ion battery, to keep the costs optimal, what we need to ensure is that you should not require a second battery, and that's where you will get the advantage out of this technology. So if you have to go for an additional lithium ion battery for your application, then certainly it does not make sense. Now let me explain that with this graph. Okay, so if you have a look at this graph, now, this is a typical charge discharge cycle of a lithium ion battery. Now, if you start with a 100% charge and you work for say 1 or 2 hours, and then you have a tea break sort of, and then you put it on charge again. It goes up to a certain charge, then you again use it for say the next 5 hours, then you again put it on charge, it comes back to say 85-90% of charge. Now, if you have these opportunities of breaks available in your application, which gives you enough time to charge the battery to another 30-40% level, then only it makes sense for anybody to go for a lithium ion battery. If your application is such, and that is where a deep study of the actual application requirement is required, that if your application is such that when you start at 9 a.m. in the morning and at a stretch you have to work for say 6 hours without the battery stopping a bit, then and you don't get enough time to charge the battery in between, then you may need an additional lithium ion battery, and that is where the commercials will go for a toss. In those applications it is recommended to go for lead acid batteries. Okay, but having said that, once the application is clear and the application is found to be suitable for a lithium ion battery, then the advantages are huge. And what are those advantages? First of all, it's a compact battery size, almost like no maintenance. You don't have to fill distilled water. You don't have to do equalization charge, what is typically associated with a lead acid battery. Very low operational cost in terms of you don't need a different charging room because there are no fumes, no gases, nothing. And the biggest thing, you don't you don't have to wait for the battery to get discharged. I mean, you actually have to, you are free to do opportunity charging, which is not at all recommended for a lead acid battery technology. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that when an application has lithium ion as the recommended solution, then this is the best option to have. And the second part is uh, the cycle time or the number of cycles, the life of the battery of a lithium ion is almost like 3000 to 4000 cycles, depending on what technology is used inside. and each cycle is from the time it is charged fully to the time it is discharged to say 10 or 15% level. So if we take say 1 or 1.5 cycle a day, the battery life technically goes up to 7 or 8 years. Now, in that lifespan, a lead acid battery will definitely undergo a replacement in a span of 3.5 to 4 years. Now, if we do that total cost of ownership calculation, a lithium-ion battery forklift will come out to be having lower TCO as compared to a lead acid battery technology. But as I said, as I cautioned, it is not a one size that fits all. We need to understand the application, and only when it is suitable, we should go in for this technology. So as I mentioned in the bottom line, any lithium ion battery should either be in usage or getting charged. So that is the mantra of actually getting the most out of our lithium ion battery. The next category is articulated forklift. Now this is also a part of electrical equipment, but it is different in the way this is designed. If you see, the mast is in an articulating position, which ensures that the basic disadvantage of a forklift of having a requirement of big eye space is taken care of by this mechanism by articulating the mast. Basically, this combines the versatility of a conventional forklift and a very narrow aisle equipment to make a composite package. So you have a versatile equipment which can also work in low aisle spaces. And this was one photograph which I shared in my general concepts also. And as you can see, this is a live photograph where you can easily see that an articulated forklift requires almost like 50% less space as compared to a forklift and 30% as compared to a reach truck. Just running a quick video for you to get an understanding. So that was just to show you the concept. As you would have noted that forklift would be working in, I think, an aisle of about say 2 meters as such. I mean, plus minus 100 mm here and there. And if you compare it with a reach truck, it requires about 3.1 meters. If you compare it with a forklift, it will require anything between 3.5 to 4.2 meters. So that's where this concept becomes very unique. So we have so far covered the segment on diesel forklifts, their powertrains, with a segment on electric forklifts and what powers electric forklifts. The last segment in this presentation is about attachments which are used on forklifts. Now these attachments are something which make this product so versatile, because you can customize it to almost anything, as you will see in a few of the subsequent videos. So I'll just run this for you quickly for you to get an understanding. So this is the paper roll clamp attachment. So that was about paper roll clamp. Now next we are showing a short video on carton clamp. Now one of the feedback that we received in the previous webinar was that we were requested to show more videos so that the concepts become more clear. So I mean, thanks for that feedback. We are able to put these videos for you. So this carton clamp attachment is a very popular fitment on forklift, especially for white goods industry. And what we saw earlier, obviously it is in paper and packaging industry, especially in newsprints. It's a very popular attachment. Next, we are talking about bale clamp attachment, which is again the key requirement in any textile industry. So this was about bale clamp. Next, we are talking about parrot beak attachment, which is used for handling drums and very popular in oil industry. So there various types of attachments for drum handling are available. This is one of the attachments which is used for handling drums. So there are similar other attachments as well. Now this is the furnace stoking attachment. Just running a short video of this. So as you can see, this is mainly used in steel industry or wherever you have to put the charge inside the furnace from a distance. So these forklifts, as you can see, they are used in variety of industries, and every industry is having a unique application, and there are solutions available in the market for addressing those requirements. As you would have seen from diesel forklifts to electric forklifts to the variety of attachments that we have showcased, we have like something which fits all the applications, and that is what is available in the market. So as we say, in conclusion, I would like to say it is an indispensable equipment for storage and handling, having variety of applications. And with that, I come to the end of this presentation. And now we are free to answer any questions that you have. We completed 5 minutes before schedule of the presentation. So that's good because I'll be able to answer the queries which would have come so far. So, Aniket.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Abhishek Chaturvedi, for this very insightful session on different types of forklifts. I'm sure the audience has gained something new from this session. This storage and handling knowledge series is actually created to cover the nuances in intralogistics space that will give everyone an edge while planning their next storage or handling project. So before moving on to the Q&A session, I would like to request all the attendees to please click on the feedback link which is available in the chat box. And so so the feedback link will be available in the chat box. So there are a lot of questions that have been asked. So Mr. Abhishek Chaturvedi, if you can help us with a couple of answers to these questions. Of course, we cannot answer everything for paucity of time, but I'll just put forward a couple of questions to you. Maybe you can answer those.
Sure.
So one of the questions that was asked was that many companies are offering omnidirectional wheel for forklift, which moves sideways. This uses very less space than our forklifts. Why don't we have the omnidirectional wheel, which will give space advantages?
So, see, as we progress, there are various technologies which keep coming, and we keep taking it for consideration depending on what will be the adaptability of those concepts in the market. So, whenever a new technology comes in, we also have to look at whether the industry is ready to adopt that. Not only the technology, but the technology at a certain price point. Having said that, that's a very very unique requirement which comes in, and there is a category called as side loader, which also is used for similar application, especially when you are having long loads and you want to handle it sideways. You can use a side loader, which is a more popular and established concept than a multi-directional forklift. I mean, we have come across those concepts, but we did not find it interesting enough to include it in the range. So yes, but as a concept, with some people, these products may be available.
Right. So another question is, it's a very common question, but why diesel forklifts are common when compared to battery forklifts?
Okay, so again, as I explained in my presentation, so diesel forklifts are very, very versatile because they are able to take a lot of rough, especially in outside environment when the ground condition, or so to say the road conditions are not so good. A diesel forklift is able to take much more abuse relatively as compared to an electric forklift. That is because it is engine powered, and the build of the diesel forklift is much more rugged. Not to say that electric forklift is not rugged, but in relative terms, diesel forklift is much more rugged and can take a much more level of abuse as compared to electric forklift, and that's one of the reasons that diesel forklifts are so popular, especially in outside environment.
Right. Thanks for the answer. Another question is, what are the safety accessories that can be given on a forklift?
So there are various type of safety accessories which can be given on a forklift. For example, you have different types of lights which can be given. When I say lights, apart from the headlights and the rear lights, you also have something called as the blue lights or the rear red halo lights, which which throw a beam at a distance, so that before a forklift is coming out of a aisle or something, the light indicates to the pedestrians outside or the next equipment outside that a forklift is coming. So that is one category of safety accessories. The other categories are various types of alarms which are available. Then there are accessories such as camera system which is available, and also we are now building in. We also have started introducing something called as biometric access, PIN code access to prevent unauthorized access of these machines. So these are the various safety accessories which are available as part of the equipment.
Right. Thanks for the answer. One more question is, can a normal BOPT, that is battery operated pallet truck, can a normal BOPT be used for container stuffing and de-stuffing application?
Yeah, so while I mean today's session is about forklift, but yeah, still I'll try to address that question. So technically, yes, it can, and there are quite a few applications of container stuffing, de-stuffing, where we have seen people using BOPTs, and they're most recommended even in general concepts. One of the recommended equipment that we had talked about was a BOPT, but there are only few things that we need to be sort of aware of and be cautious about is when the BOPT is moving inside the trailer and coming out. So those edges should be like they should be flushed. Otherwise, there will be a lot of wear and tear of the wheels because they are smaller wheels as compared to forklifts. Second, the bed of the container. Now, if that bed of the container is not flat and it is having those serrations, then the wheel may get stuck or may sort of create some bit of issue in operating inside the container. If those basic things are taken care of, obviously a BOPT can be used for container stuffing, de-stuffing.
All right. So we have received a couple of questions on lithium-ion battery. So one question is, what is the increase in cost due to lithium-ion battery in terms of percentage? I think we have covered this in the slide, but if you can talk a couple of points about it. And the second question related to that is, how is the lithium-ion battery disposed of?
Okay. So the first question in terms of percentage increase, I would say that it is almost like 2.5 to 3 times the price of comparable lead acid battery. There are two ways that these costs are sort of tried to be optimized. I mean, that is an important point to understand. So, for example, in an application, if we are using say a 48 volt, say 400 ampere hour lead acid battery, okay. Uh, so if we do 48 volt 400 lead acid to 48 volt 400 lithium ion, then the difference would be say like 4.5 to 5 times. Okay, so but because of the feature of lithium ion battery having like being used as opportunity charging also, instead of giving 400 ampere hour in lithium ion, we would rather recommend say 250 or 260 ampere hour, and then keep on charging it and using it, charging it and using it. With that comparison, 48 volt 400 versus 48 volt 260 of lithium ion, that comparison would be about 2.5 to 3 times. And the second question, the disposable part. Right now, there are no regulations which have been defined by the government, but definitely this is one topic which is under discussion, and we are also awaiting clear guidelines from Ministry of Environment for the disposal of those batteries. So to answer it straightforwardly, there are no guidelines which are defined as of now. Like lead acid, there are very clear-cut guidelines. For lithium ion, those guidelines are still to be defined.
Right. Thanks, Abhishek. So there's another question which is very interesting. They've asked that is there any new upcoming technology that may charge the MHE, whether it be forklift or BOPT, a wide wireless charging facility so that the operator can charge MHE on the go?
No, I mean that's an interesting thought to have, but no, there is no such technology. Whatever, whether we talk about lithium-ion battery or whether we talk about lead-acid battery, everything needs to have a wired charging. I mean that's the requirement. You have to plug in the battery to the charger to get it charged. I've not come across any technology which is wireless as of now.
All right. And another question related to charging is how much time does a normal battery take to get fully charged?
So there are different types of chargers which are available. One of the, I mean, for example, it can be 6 hours charging time or 8 hours charging time. But again, there is a, what you say, there's always a give or take which happens. So if you go in for a 6-hour charger, that means you are pumping in more current in less time. So your battery will get charged faster, but again the lifespan of the battery will get reduced because you're pumping in more current in less time. While in 8-hour charger, the your charging will be more gradual, so you will need more time to charge, but your batteries will last longer. So depending on application again and the requirement, doing the cost benefit analysis, we have to select the charger accordingly. So to answer it in one line, it is either 6 hours or 8 hours, and sometimes there are fast chargers also available, which are high frequency chargers or smart chargers which can charge in lesser time also. Technologies that maybe we can have one session only on battery and chargers. It is such big a subject.
I guess with the kind of questions for lithium ion and battery charging, we'll have to have a separate session on electric forklifts itself. So another question related to it is, can a forklift be converted between from a lead acid battery forklift to a lithium ion battery forklift?
See, straight away it cannot be. I mean, if I answer very abruptly, but now the new design which is being made available in the market, this is taking care of this part also, that as applications change, there should be some flexibility available in the design itself so that it becomes compatible with both type of batteries. And there is something that needs to be understood here, that the box size of both batteries are not same. Lithium ion battery requires a much lesser space as compared to a lead acid battery. So you need to have some sort of a envelope redesigning. When I say envelope, it's the overall box of the forklift redesigned where you can fit in both. And once you fit in a lead acid, a lithium ion battery, you need to have some additional counterweight to take care of the weight loss which has happened because of this swap of batteries. So yes, both batteries, compatible forklifts or equipment are being designed now. But if we talk about forklifts which are already running in the field and they have to convert it into lithium ion, we may have to take it as a project, not like it is not a straight away fit. We may have to look at that, understand the requirement, see what's available, what's the exact, as I said, lithium ion battery has to be selected as per the application. We have to see whether that application actually needs a lithium ion battery or not, and then maybe going for a replacement only for that particular application, which may or may not get recommended after doing this entire study.
Yeah, right. Thanks for the answer. We have another interesting question. So it's more to do with probably reach trucks, but just a comparison between reach trucks and articulated trucks for G+5 levels for a pharmaceutical FG warehouse. So I think maybe we can just answer if how different is the performance of a reach truck as compared to an articulated truck in a warehouse.
So first, let me just put in a word here that articulated and reach truck are two different set of equipment having two different set of parameters defining the requirement of those equipment, why you select each of them. Articulated forklift, obviously, when we speak about is mainly to do with narrow aisles and going up to a height of 12.5 meter, having a capacity requirement of 600 kgs. So that is one parameter that you select. As far as reach truck is concerned, while you will need a bigger aisle, but your derated capacity requirements will be better. Like the derated capacity that you will get out of a reach truck will be higher at a height. So if your loads are higher at heights, then a reach truck may come in as a solution. Now, having said that, if you have both parameters equal, that it can be met with reach truck also and it can be met with articulated also, then obviously it would make sense to go in with articulated forklift because you are able to save space. I mean, nothing more than that. Other than that, there is nothing to choose between the two as far as the performance is concerned, as far as the load handling is required. Both are equally sort of easy to handle, and trainings and everything are available for both category of products. It's only the load capacity requirements and the aisle space requirements which define which product you would like to go in for.
So a related question to that is, what is the minimum aisle width, that is the pallet to pallet distance, that we can consider for an articulated forklift?
So minimum can be as low as 1.7 or 1.8 meter also. But again, it depends on the model that is selected and the pallet size which is being handled. So I can say the range will be anything between 1.8 to 2.2 meters. Broadly, that will be the range where most of the applications will fit in, because the standard pallet sizes are 1000 by 1200 or 1200 by 1200. So within that, we should be able to accommodate any type of equipment within this aisle space range that I just spoke about.
Right, great. Thanks for the answers. Another question is, can diesel forklifts be used for pulling the heavy material from vehicle by using belt or sling or ropes? In such cases, belt or wire ropes is being tied to the mast of the forklift. Is it safe? Secondly, can separate attachment be provided for such pulling of the material?
See, it's a very interesting question, and there's some things which are not recommended, but still they happen in the field, and not we cannot sort of really control that situation. So first of all, the mast. So there are a lot of force dynamics which are there in designing of any equipment. I mean, why only forklift? Okay, and they're designed for a certain purpose. So the designing of mast is to carry the load on the forks, and the fixation of mast on the chassis of the forklift is with that consideration. It is never with a consideration that you will have a rope tied around the mast and pulled, because that will give undue stress to the bolts which are holding the mast to the chassis and leading to premature wear and tear of those masts. And to an extent, this will create a sort of a safety hazard when the forklift is being used for actually what it has been procured for, which is lifting loads. So it is not recommended to do that. As far as pulling the load out is concerned, maybe we'll have to understand that application a bit better, because in most of the cases, a combination of a ramp, a dock leveler, and a forklift going inside to pick the item out generally is able to do the job without requiring the need of this pulling to happen. Only where the infrastructure is a bit of a challenge, there these sort of I would say unrecommended practices are forced to be done. But to answer it, we need to have the right infrastructure to be able to ensure longevity of the product and the safety of the product. I mean, that's all I can answer without really knowing what that application is all about.
Right, thanks a lot. So another question related to attachments is, it seems that the parrot beak and paper clamp attachment can be used interchangeably. Is it true for cylindrical objects?
I didn't get that question. Can you please repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the question is that it seems that the parrot beak attachment and the paper roll clamp attachment can be used interchangeably for cylindrical objects. Is it true?
Parrot beak and paper roll clamp. Okay. Uh, Very interesting because see, we have to understand whenever we are giving an attachment. See, one of the core things that any forklift supplier does is doing an application study and then recommending the right product. Why I'm saying so is while by the look of it, it may look a very similar sort of an application, but actually the design of that attachment is totally different. For example, if you look at a paper, it is a very delicate item. So the pressure pads and the pressure settings of a paper roll clamp will be totally different to an attachment which is handling a drum. Okay, paper is relatively very light as compared to a maybe a filled oil drum. Okay, so to that extent, a particular attachment should be used only for that particular application and not interchangeably, unless we are saying that okay, we are handling empty drums and paper roll clamp, but still it is not recommended because your inner dia and the pressure settings are different for different applications. I hope I am able to answer that gentleman's lady's question. In case I'm not able to, please write to us and we will try to explain that again.
Yeah, I think a similar question or related question is, will paper roll clamp or bail clamp damage the goods due to excessive force? Which you have partially answered, but if you can just elaborate.
So, will paper roll clamp and what was the other one you said?
Bail clamp.
Yeah, okay. So again, see if you look at the structure, so to say, of these attachments, they're specifically made for those applications. And again, the pressure settings and the pads which are on the inside of those attachments are made to handle those things. So if you can imagine, a bale is relatively rough as compared to a paper roll which is relatively smooth. Now, if you try to interchange the clamps and try to handle it, either you will not be able to get the grip or you may be damaging the item. One of the two may happen. So again, I would like to repeat that we should always sort of use the right equipment, the right attachment, and the right power source for the right application. Only then we'll be able to get the most optimum output of that combination.
Very well put by you. Another question that we have received is, for drive-in racks, how can the forklift be used in a safer way?
So forklifts and reach trucks are a popular equipment for drive-in racking system. As long as we are able to uh, have the racking designed in coordination with the MHE, so that the entry of the forklift and the guided mechanism, everything is being taken care of. I don't see any issue as far as the suitability of forklift as a category is concerned for a drive-in racking system. So yes, it can easily be used, but we have to be vigilant of the critical parameters so that it's able to operate safely. Again, application study.
Right. Thanks. So we have a barrage of questions coming in. So maybe for considering the paucity of time, how many questions would you like to answer more?
I think we have another 10 minutes, so maybe I can take another 3 or 4 questions.
All right. All right. So, interesting question. Would it be possible to have a solar-powered MHE charging? So, an MHE having a photovoltaic cell that might reduce the disposable and shift to renewable source of energy.
Uh, See, to put it honestly, right now, solar powered technology is not being explored as much as I know in the material handling industry, the solar powered energy. I mean, wherever we look at it, even in automobiles, if we look at it, where lot of progress is being made in electric vehicles, even those vehicles are powered uh, by a source which is within the equipment, and that has to be charged after a certain distance. And they are generally like lithium ion batteries, which have a longer duration to run, obviously, but even they are not being explored for solar powered. So as a concept, it sounds interesting, but if I'm able to relate that solar power is generally used in static applications, not in mobile applications. So you will have these solar panels being installed on rooftops to power a full village, to give power to an electrical grid for further distributing the power. But I don't remember solar power being used to power any mobile application. So to answer it, no, I don't think so that is feasible as far as the design part is concerned.
Great. I think we have a very futuristic audience because we have a couple of questions asking about the technologies in future. So just one more question related to that is, are we looking at operator-less forklifts or remote controlled forklifts in the future with the current normal?
Uh, yes, that's a very interesting question because that is known as like autonomous vehicles, and lot of R&D research is happening around those technologies. Uh, so to put it simply, yes, work is going on, but is the market ready to sort of launch it? I think that's a bit of a distance away, but it's not too far away. In quite a few countries, we have seen that people have started showcasing this in various exhibitions and platforms as a concept. So we know that this is coming, but as I mentioned sometime earlier, it's not only about the technology being developed by the manufacturer. It is also about the acceptability of that technology by the user. So when I say acceptability, the acceptability has to be in total, uh, technically as well as commercially. So I think unless that gap is bridged, even though people may have this in their range, still uh, we may not have many takers of that. So this is something that will excite many people, but not many people may put their money on the table for adopting the technology because of the costs and the maybe the maintenance involved around that. Okay, so but yes, lot of work is happening in that. That much I can assure that more near than future, we may look at certain ranges which are autonomous to a large extent.
Great. So last couple of questions. So one question is that do we have any option of displaying the weight lifted by a forklift so that there is no incident of overloading?
Yes, good. It's a good question. Yes, we have something called as weight indicator, which can be given in forklifts as options. That is commonly available in the market. So there are different technologies behind that. Something is like one of the technologies is load cell technology, where you have cells mounted on the forks and they are calibrated for understanding a particular load, and that is then uh, read on that panel of the operator console. The other is pressure based, like depending on what pressure is exerted on the hydraulic system, there is a linkage drawn through the controller and that weight is displayed. But a very clear disclaimer there that these readings, even though they may be accurate up to plus minus 1 to 5%, they should not be used as sort of certifications, they are indications. So please understand when I say that under the statutory guidelines, you have weighing bridges and all which give you sort of a slip and all that this is the weight being carried in a truck or something like that. This weight indicator is an indicator. It should not be used as a certifying mechanism of a load being carried. That should be done only in the certified measuring instruments. I mean, I just wanted to put a disclaimer because many times people use that as a weighing bridge. It is not a weighing bridge. It is just to, as the need has very rightly been put, to ensure that overloading is not done. If that is the need, yes, there is a solution available in the market by the name of weight indicator.
Yeah, thanks for answering. Since we have, I think, another 6 minutes to go, I'll just quickly put forward two questions. The first one being, how is the throughput calculated for an articulated truck?
Okay, so I would rather change this question to how is the throughput calculated for any equipment. Okay, so because that would be something that will be useful for any product being considered. Now, see, throughput calculation on paper is something which can be very easily done. Okay, so you have the travel speeds, you have the lifting lowering speeds, you have the distances, and a simple physics and mathematics will tell you how much time is taken to take one pallet to a location and return empty-handed. So if you are taking, say, 3 minutes or 4 minutes to complete that cycle as per the calculations, your throughput is 15 pallets per hour. So that's the mathematics part of it, and it's no rocket science. Anybody can do that throughput calculation. But what is interesting here is that it's not only the equipment speeds which will determine the throughput, and that's a very important parameter. Okay, I mean, even though that's an important parameter, the equipment speeds and all, but that's not the only very important parameter. You have something called as how the equipment is maintained, what are the operating environment, how is the operator trained, and again, even though there are certain speeds specified in the specification leaflet of the product, you may seldom be able to reach those top speeds because you are working in a constrained environment. There will be traffic of people, there will be traffic of other machines, so you will never reach top speed. So those considerations should come in your throughput calculation. Apart from that, there are other considerations like how is the material flow. Now if you want to use a reach truck, or if you, for that matter, if you want to calculate the throughput of an articulated, now any lifting equipment should be restricted to only aisle spaces and used only for stacking destacking applications, and they should be fed by low end equipment like hand pallet trucks and BOPTs. Okay, but if you use an articulated forklift to travel from staging area to racking area and then doing loading, unloading, and then coming back again to the staging area to pick up the pallet, your throughput is going to be very less. But if you restrict it to the aisle space and keep feeding it with BOPTs, your throughput goes up. Now, if you notice that if you do a calculation based only on racking area being used for articulated, your throughput will be much higher as compared to using it when you're moving from one end point to the other point. And I mean, there's so many factors. The other is how is the material placed and how is the pick list generated. If you have all picking and put away happening in a sequence, your throughput will be very higher. But if your pick list or put away is very haphazard, one product from aisle 1, another product from aisle 7, one product from level 1, other product from level G+4, your throughputs are again going to get compromised. So it's a mix of so many factors, and it is unique to every application. I mean, that is the way I would like to put it. There, you cannot put a single number to any product saying that this is the throughput that you will get out of the product. It may change from one application to another application.
Yeah, very well put. So the last question for the day is what are the new product launches in 2021 for Godrej?
Okay, so actually this session was not exactly for promoting or pushing a product. This was just a pure knowledge sharing session. But since it has been asked, so we'd just like to put across that one of the products that we are launching is a three-wheeler forklift. And the next product that we are launching is a 2-ton reach truck up to 10.6 meters. So these are the two major launches which are going to happen this year. Other are just minor range additions that we keep doing during the course of the year.
Right. Thanks a lot, Mr. Abhishek Chaturvedi. And you really had the patience to answer all these questions. I would like to give a big thanks to all the attendees to take out time and attend this session and increase their knowledge on different types of forklift trucks. Please let us know your feedback about the sessions and any other session that you want us to cover in the future. So any topic that you want us to cover in the future, please let us know. Your feedback matters and it will help us in providing you with meaningful content in the future.